the institutions where the researchers reside and the corporations that absorb much of the research, that relationship has changed pretty fundamentally over the past 25 years. The corporations have diminished their R&D spending on, let's say, blue sky research. What's happened is that the universities, the core research institutions that were funded by the governments are becoming much more prominent in the innovation space. They're doing that because they are learning through a common knowledge set of how to create companies that sit at the intersection of the university and wherever that commercial world is.
Classroom and a startup might seem like two completely different worlds. One is built around learning, the other around uncertainty. But our guest today has spent decades proving that journey from one to another can be one of the most exciting paths an entrepreneur can take. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global university ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today. Joining us is David Charron, a lecturer in entrepreneurship and innovation and design at Haas School of Business, University of California, Berkeley. For more than 35 years, he has worked at the intersection of innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, commercialization, and venture creation, helping students, scientists, researchers, and founders transform ideas into real-world impact. David, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Harish, for that wonderful introduction. And yes, it's been a long time. I've spent a lot of time in this world, seeing the education piece, seeing the commercialization piece, and seeing the technology piece. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you today.
Right, great. So you have owned so many hats, as you're told now. So when someone asks you, what exactly do you do? What's your favorite answer?
This is a great question. It's like, we always try to put people into like a bucket, here's what you do. In some respects, I've been doing teaching more than anything else, but I'm trying to do more work directly with entrepreneurs who have made it through the early stages. So in the teaching domain, what I try to do is get people from the ideation phase into implementation phase. And of course, that has changed in the past 5 years to an accelerated point of view about how students, whether that's a researcher doing a new type of metal oxide framework, or a person thinking that they have a better piece of software, or somebody who's doing open source software, those all fit into my domain. And then I try to get them to help to understand how the world works with respect to commercialization. So in some respects, that last statement is really what I try to do, is I try to help people understand how the world works.
Amazing. And you have founded one of the earliest successful neuroplasticity companies, long before brain tech became buzzword. So if you were pitching that company today, do you think investors would understand it better, or would they just use more buzzwords?
Yeah, this is a great topic. Neuroplasticity is a thing that happens to all of us every day when we wake up. Our brains learn. And as I'd like to say to my scientific co-founder of that company, Michael Merznick, is that as a human, we are designed as a learning machine. That's what we do every day, and that's what we attempt to do within the educational session. And what I like to say to Mike is that when you stop learning, you're close to death. So as an individual, if I think about starting a new company and looking back in the neuroplasticity world, my goal is to have people learn. That goal can be embodied in lots of different methodologies. It can be embodied in the classroom. It can be embodied in the activities that you do on a daily basis. So there's a lot of room to think about how you could take a scientific finding and move it forward. But one of the things that's happened over the last 25 years is the number of research reports in science about psychology, neuroscience, the clinical aspects of the neuroscience piece, is that the diversity of the human mind is really extreme. You have points of view like, do we have free will versus no free will? Fascinating topics, but ultimately we all get up in the morning and we go to work, or we do podcasts, or we do teaching in a classroom, or we help create new technology. And all of that is part of the human condition. And that's what I want people to do. I want people to feel happy about that, that they are expending 25% of their energy on the brain, and that they're using their given capabilities in that in a constructive and healthy way.
Very interesting. And teaching for so many years, what has surprised you the most about today's generation of founders?
Yeah, today's generation of founders is quite different. I can talk about the generation of founding. What is it like to found a company today? But the actual generation of founders today have a different perspective. And that perspective is one of open fields. So we can talk about red ocean, blue ocean. Really what it comes down to is that there are a lot of opportunities that are placed in front of the founders today, and their ability to pick up those opportunities and move them forward distinguishes them from somebody who's not going to do that. Is that something different than what has happened in the past? And the answer is no. People have a predisposition to doing something which is the grabbing of an opportunity and taking it forward. I can say that I can create entrepreneurs in the classroom, and I can, but what I can't do is I can't give them an opportunity, something that says, here's the market itself, go forth and conquer that market. That's up to the entrepreneur to do. And those entrepreneurs who seize those opportunities have the ability to move forward, but they also have the ability to pivot quite fast, especially in the software domain. They have the ability to persevere longer because the cost structures are different than they were 20 years ago. And that mentality, that mindset, is something that is really important for them to have. And that distinguishes today's entrepreneur, is that they're able to persevere, they're able to grab that opportunity, and think of this in the longer sense of their career. What are they doing and why are they doing it?
Very well said. You've also helped countless researchers commercialize groundbreaking technologies through programs like NSF, iCorps. What's the biggest difference between a great piece of research and a successful startup?
So this is a big topic. Let me just say that we could go on for a long time with respect to how research and the research institutions are changing, both in the United States and international. Let me start on that side for a minute, is that the institutions where the researchers reside and the corporations that absorb much of the research, that relationship has changed pretty fundamentally over the past 25 years. I'll describe it in simple terms, but it's of course a much more complex topic. What's happened is that the corporations have diminished their R&D spending on, let's say, blue sky research. Now, that's a little bit different within the AI space, but we'll hold that for just a minute. what's happened is that the universities, the core research institutions that were funded by the governments of your country, my country, other countries, are becoming much more prominent in the innovation space. They're doing that because they are learning through common sort of knowledge set of how to create companies that sit at the intersection of the university and wherever that commercial world is. 25 years ago, that was a difficult thing to have happen. The researchers themselves were mostly naive about how to do that. Some were extraordinary, and we can talk about those as examples. But now we have institutions like Berkeley, or like the University of Arizona, or Harvard, or wherever it might be, that have created secondary institutions that help those entrepreneurs move from the academic institution in a protected manner to create value in that marketplace, and then recover that value through the sale of that company or from the successful commercialization of that technology. That knowledge base is what has fundamentally changed. So now anybody at any institution around the world can understand, how do I take my research and move it forward? From the United States standpoint, what that's doing, it's collapsing the distance between the problems being created, solved, on necessary problems that need to be solved, and the research lines. So the research is no longer sort of really way out there. It's much more applied research. And so that relationship between the university and the application of the research is shorter, tighter. Now that's being driven by a couple of things. One of the drivers is that as a researcher, researchers want to see their technology commercialized because it's value to them. They want to feel valued in society. They want to see applicability. And so many of the researchers are taking on that view of, oh, this is great. I understand how the world works. I understand the applicability of my research, and I'll go out and I'll start a company, and then I'll come back to the university. So the mindset of the researchers have changed over the last 25 years. And you might say, well, Dave, you keep on using 25 years. Well, 25 years is a generation, right? So we have a generational shift. In addition to that, the universities themselves and other research labs have changed their point of view with respect to funding, commercialization, and they're starting to play in the space in a way that is very concerted. So if I take the classic, take the people, take the technology, take the knowledge of how to do it and put some money into it, and all of a sudden you have an ecosystem that can really ramp up the technology commercialization space. So we're seeing this shift and we've seen this shift for a long, long time, from the corporate R&D labs into the universities. And then we're seeing the startup aspects of the universities really amplify. Now, there's also another factor here, which we kind of got to in the zero interest rate period a number of years ago, where the activity level just sort of frothed. It just really became stronger, much more prominent. And the combination of that with increased valuations in the marketplace. So I can start a company today, it's worth $0, but I can get it to be valued at 100 million or $1 billion in a year, right? That also creates an incentive for researchers or postdocs or PhDs or master's students or even undergraduates to say, okay, I'm going to participate in this because I can become very wealthy in this process. And I take that knowledge base of how to do it and I just bring it into my world and I push it forward. And those factors are just accelerating this activity in a way that I couldn't have imagined 30 years ago, that I couldn't have imagined even 10 to 15 years ago. So it's really an amazing transformation.
Very interesting. And our series is called School to Startup, and I'd love to begin there. Usually, students often believe entrepreneurship starts with having a great idea. And you also have often emphasized that finding the right problem is even more important. So why do so many founders fall in love with solutions before they truly understand the problem?
Well, I think that's it's just a common issue that we've seen for years and years and years, right? People become solution oriented without understanding the problem. In the past, when that creation of the solution was very, very expensive. So if I go back to the dot-com days, right, I had to buy servers, I had to buy all this equipment, and my ability to transform that core asset into something else was also really expensive. People try to force the entrepreneurs to think about what problem am I solving, right? So it's the whole design thinking piece of it. It's like, oh, what's really going on here? What problem am I solving for whom? That became prominent around that time, and we still struggle with the entrepreneurs today to understand, okay, what problem are you really solving here? And really focus on that point of view. It's still really hard to get people to understand the problems. Why is that? I have theories, but I have no, magic wand. I can say the following is that in my experimentation, both in the classroom, longitudinally, is that if I can get people to understand the design thinking methodologies, they get much closer and much more capable of understanding problems before they get the solution figured out. But, we live in schools like Berkeley that are highly technical and engineering oriented. And so people still take the engineering point of view and they push solutions into the marketplace. But the fundamental difference now is that I can change those solutions much cheaper, right? So I can move from solution A to solution B based upon market feedback. So the question becomes, how do you start? If you're a student at a university, I would say just start, right? Costs are low, things are free. I can pivot basically for free. I understand problems by pushing things into the marketplace and interacting with the market to understand the problem that I'm actually solving. So these two things, solutioning and understanding the problem, are coming together and joining in the classroom in a way that is very different than even just a year and a half ago.
Interesting. And also, Berkeley is known around the world for its entrepreneurial culture. What is it about the Berkeley ecosystem that consistently encourages students and researchers to think it beyond the classroom?
Yeah, so this is an ecosystem piece. It's not that Berkeley hasn't done that in the past. So Berkeley has a long history of successfully moving things from the lab out into the marketplace. But like many institutions now, inside that classroom, we are opening the conversation around what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening with the technology, what is changing. And that enlightenment of the student allows them to say, oh, I see the trend. That trend is this technology is moving in this particular way. That's opening new opportunities for me, so I will participate in that. So this ability to bring both technological trends and understanding where the science is today and what is a science experiment versus a market experiment, and understanding where the society is with respect to absorbing that, whether that's in a B2B context or a B2C context, that is the unlock that we have in the classroom. Now, the other piece of that is always a struggle to get money, right? Is that no matter who you are in the classroom or the researcher side, you're always thinking, okay, where do I get my initial capital? Yeah, it might be 25,000 US dollars, it might be 100,000 US dollars. That's another unlock that has happened over the past 10 years. That money is now in the environment to help people move forward. And I can name off institutions here at Berkeley that help people do that. But it's really been remarkable to see the growth of those institutions over time. So
Interesting.
that's a really huge change in the environment, in the ecosystem.
Right. And also, most of the universities are now investing in incubators and entrepreneurship programs. From your experience, what separates an incubator that truly creates entrepreneurs from one that simply provides the office space?
Yeah, so this is again a little bit of magic and a lot of work. This is not a simple equation. And in my business brain, what I say is if I put in a certain amount of money on the investment into an incubator or accelerator, how do I know I'm actually going to get a return? If I'm the academic institution, I have to be thinking, okay, this is like a corporate innovation project. So I could put millions of dollars in and I have to get a return. Or I'm thinking about this strategically, and the strategic issues are, okay, if I do this, am I recruiting better faculty, more entrepreneurial faculty, and how is that going to affect the research institution? My belief has always been keep those costs low because the people matter more than the facility itself, whether that's the space or the advisors or whatever. In today's world, though, those advisors have become super important. They are important because, again, when I have a faculty member or a student and they're starting a company, what they don't know is, gee, how do I think about my go-to-market strategy in today's world? How do I think about creating a life science company when there's no lab space next to me? How do I confront the recruitment aspect of getting a co-founder or a small but highly qualified team? So those advisor networks become the secret. And there's so many people in the Bay Area right now that have that experience that the advisor groups tend to be very large. So that's a differentiator between the space provider and the knowledge provider. The knowledge provider is the way to make that happen. That doesn't mean it creates 100% success in startups. It just means that the tools and understanding the current market circumstances are there and available to the entrepreneur. Then there's the money side, right? And the money side is an important part, which is like entrepreneurs always want more money. If they know that they have to work harder to get the money, even if it's a small amount of money, a small amount of accelerator funding, I'll take the Y Combinator example. It forces the entrepreneur to do better. It forces the entrepreneur to be better. And that money becomes the value that they get above and beyond that advisor group. And that is the unlock again from space to know-how to financial help moving forward. We can talk about demo days, we can talk about a whole bunch of things, but really it's those internal factors that make it work.
Very well said. And you might have done this multiple times. Probably you'll be doing it every day. Imagine a student watching this interview today. They have an idea in their notebook. They are excited, but they're also afraid to take the first step. So, what's one piece of advice you would leave them with?
If they're truly afraid of taking the first step, which means that they are anchored in another circumstance. They want to finish their PhD, they want to please their current boss, whatever it might be. They have to think hard about the choice that's in front of them. And that choice is, do I leave my current circumstance to do this very risky thing, which is called a startup, or am I more risk seeking? the thought that I want to plant in today's young entrepreneurs, and these are people who are 30 or younger, is that your career is going to be very long, and your ability to learn based upon the experiences that you develop for yourself is the thing that will distinguish you above others. Your ability to adapt, to modify your behaviors, whether that's in a marketing sense or understanding how to use an AI tool, keeping at the front end of the marketplace. Ask yourself the question, am I getting behind if I stay? Can I get ahead? Can I keep at the front end of the market if I leave? If you're keeping up by staying, then it's a tough choice, right? You're doing new research, you're doing new stuff in your current job, and you're progressing your life. Great, no problem with that. But if you feel like you're going to diminish your relevancy in the market by staying, think really hard about moving out into that startup world and how the transition occurs, right? So you can transition from a company or from an academic institution, from a classroom. You have time, you can make that happen. What I always tell my MBA students is that there's no better time to start a company than when you're in the MBA program. Now, this goes for undergraduates also. Part of it is the perspective that if I start a company within the MBA program and it fails, like I couldn't commit, the idea was dumb, the team fell apart, whatever it is, you can chalk that up to it was an MBA experience. And it doesn't have to go on your CV, right? This is a unique period of time. Anybody in an academic institution, start the company early. Don't worry if it fails, but get the experience of doing it. And if it wins, go. Yeah, make it happen. But if it fails, it doesn't show up on your CV.
Wow. And before we wrap up, where can our audience learn more about your work, your teaching, and the initiatives you are currently involved in?
I don't write much. So the one thing that I have experienced over time is that entrepreneurship and innovation, there are tons of people who write really well and do fundamental research. So I rely upon them. If you want to learn more from me, send me a note. david.charron@berkeley.edu. Happy to answer. My email stack is pretty big, so I may not get to you right away. Or come take a class with me and get yourself involved in this new entrepreneurship that's coming up, because we are in a transition phase right now in 2026. The old models are going away. The new models are coming in. And I would be delighted to have another conversation with you, Harish, about this. But I'm happy to describe that to people.
Perfect. And all the links will be available in the comment section. You can click on the links and reach out to David. David, thank you so much. Thank you once again for sharing your experiences and wisdom with us. Today's conversation reminded us that successful startups don't just begin with the great ideas, they begin with curiosity, learning, and solving meaningful problems as well. So thank you again. Thank you for being part of this episode.
You're very welcome. Good luck to everyone.
Great. And people, if you have enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay updated with more inspiring conversations. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode of School to Startup. Bye-bye.